I used to be the kind of guy who loved shortcuts, back roads, county trails, service routes, through forgotten farmland. I'd driven most of rural Illinois by the time I was 30. I liked the quiet, the open space, the kind of emptiness that made you feel like the world had folded in on itself. But one stretch of road cured me of that. County Road 11, outside of a little town called Reed's Hollow. I first found it in the summer of 2022. I was driving from Peoria to Rockford, doing freelance inspections for an insurance company. It wasn't unusual for me to take random side routes to avoid traffic. I had GPS, a thermos of coffee, and good music. What could go wrong? About 20 minutes past Reed's Hollow, the main highway split into two. One direction headed north. The other was a cracked, two-lane road, barely visible on my GPS. It was labeled CR 11. I remember thinking, perfect. Shortcut through the cornfields. The first few miles were peaceful. Just golden fields swaying in the heat. Old barns leaning on their last legs. Cicadas screaming from the trees. But after a while, the air started to change. The light dimmed, even though it was only mid-afternoon. Clouds gathered fast, heavy and gray, like they'd been waiting for me. Then I noticed the road signs, or rather, the lack of them. No speed limit, no county markers, just an endless stretch of cracked asphalt, winding through corn so tall it felt like walls. And then I saw it, a mailbox, old, rusted, bent sideways. The lettering was so faded, I could barely make out the name. The Harlans. I slowed down when I spotted the house behind it. It sat about 50 yards off the road, down a gravel path choked with weeds. 2 stories, white once, now yellowed with age and time. Windows boarded, a porch sagging so low it looked ready to collapse. But what made me stop wasn't the house itself. It was the front door. It was wide open. Now, I've seen plenty of abandoned houses before, but that door, it didn't just hang open. It looked like someone had pushed it wide just moments before I got there. I don't know why I did it. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom, but I parked the car on the shoulder and started down that gravel drive. The air went still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The closer I got, the more I could smell it. Damp wood, rot, something faintly metallic. I reached the porch, stepped up carefully, and called out, "Hello? Anyone home?" No answer. I leaned in and looked through the doorway. Inside, the house was stripped bare, wallpaper hanging like peeling skin. A staircase collapsed halfway up, dust floating in thin light from the broken windows. And then, from upstairs, footsteps, slow, deliberate, like someone walking heel to toe. I froze. My first thought was squatters, maybe kids, or someone hiding out. I started backing away quietly when something fell from the upper floor. It was a picture frame. The glass shattered on the entryway floor, scattering dust and a faded photograph. I bent to look at it, a family portrait, maybe from the 1950s. 2 parents, a boy and a girl, standing in front of this same house. Their eyes had been scratched out. That's when I heard the second sound. A door upstairs, creaking open. I ran, straight down the porch, through the weeds, and into my car. My hands shook as I turned the key, gravel spraying from the tires as I sped back toward the main road. But when I checked my rearview mirror, the front door wasn't open anymore. It was shut. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not that day, not the next week. I told myself it was probably an old meth house or something. Nothing supernatural, nothing to think about. But then, about a month later, I was driving another route, this time near Galesburg, when my GPS glitched. The screen flickered, reset, and suddenly, there it was again. CR 11. Only this time, it was listed as being 15 miles from where I actually was, I checked my phone's map app. Same thing. County Road 11. Different county, different area, but same label. And then the weirdest thing. A photo thumbnail popped up next to the location pin. It was the house. The same one from Reed's Hollow. Same porch. Same open door. Except this time, there was someone standing in it. A dark figure. Tall, thin, and completely still. I dropped the phone like it was hot and pulled over. When I picked it back up, the photo was gone. The pin was gone. The map was blank. Just a gray screen. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that image in my mind. The door open, the shadow inside. It felt like the house wasn't just somewhere out there. It was following me. A few weeks later, I had to drive through that region again for work. I didn't plan to, but I found myself near Reed's Hollow just before sunset. And I swear to God, the GPS said, "Turn left on County Road 11. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. The air felt heavy the moment I turned. The fields looked the same, the road cracked and gray, but I knew something was off. There were no insects, no wind. The world just stopped. I drove slower and slower until I saw it again. The mailbox. The Harlans. And behind it, the house. Only this time, the door wasn't open. It was swinging, back and forth, back and forth. And there was something new. Faint orange light spilling from one of the windows. A fire. I don't remember parking. I don't remember getting out. All I remember is standing on the porch again, staring into that open doorway. Inside, the walls were blackened with smoke. The air stank of burnt wood and something sour, but through it all, I could hear a sound, faint, steady, rhythmic. Thump, thump, thump. Like footsteps pacing in a circle. And then, a voice. Low, hoarse, whispering from somewhere deep inside the house. You came back. That broke me. I ran to the car, slammed the door, and tore down that road faster than I've ever driven in my life. My rearview mirror showed nothing but darkness behind me, but I didn't look again until I hit the interstate. When I got home, I told my coworker about it, half laughing, half shaking. He looked at me dead serious and said, "Dude, the Harlan's house burned down in the 80s. There's nothing left out there." He even showed me an old newspaper clipping. Tragic house fire kills, family of 4 on County Road 11. And right there, in the faded black and white photo, was that same house. But the weird part, the article said the bodies were never found. I don't take shortcuts anymore. I don't trust GPS either, because every once in a while, when I'm driving long stretches at night, I'll catch a glimpse of something on the map, a little side road with no name, no destination, and sometimes, just sometimes, it says CR11, and I keep driving. There's a stretch of road in New Mexico called Highway 117, just south of Grants. Locals call it the Empty Mile. It runs through miles of red rock, desert brush, and silence so deep it feels alive. No rest stops, no towns, no lights, just endless asphalt and old fences sagging under the weight of the wind. I've driven it 3 times in my life. The third time, I wish I hadn't. It was late October of 2021. I was heading home after a week-long survey job near the Zuni Mountains. I work as a geological tech. Basically, I take rock samples for a small environmental firm. I was alone, driving an old white company pickup with a rattling toolbox in the back and just enough gas to make it to I-40. By the time I hit Highway 117, the sun had already bled out across the desert. The sky went from gold to bruised purple, then to total black. I remember seeing the reflection of my headlights stretch forever, 2 pale beams cutting through dust. No cars ahead, none behind, just the endless road. That kind of isolation doesn't bother me. It's part of the job. But that night felt different. The air had a strange stillness to it. No wind, no crickets, not even the hum of power lines. Just quiet, like the world had gone on pause. About an hour in, I saw something in the road. At first I thought it was a coyote. Something small, hunched, sitting dead center in the lane. I slowed down and hit the high beams, but what I saw wasn't any animal I recognized. It was shaped like a person, but wrong. Too long in the arms, too thin in the body. It was crouched low, like it was sniffing the pavement. My stomach tightened. I honked once, short and sharp. The thing didn't move. I got within maybe 30 yards before it straightened up. And I swear, it stood. Its limbs unfolded like it hadn't moved in years, slow and stiff. For 1 second, I caught its outline in full light. A human shape, yes, but pale, naked, hairless, and completely still. Then it turned its head toward me. The reflection of its eyes, they weren't animal bright. They were dull, like glass catching light from the wrong angle. I froze. My instincts screamed to floor it, but I couldn't move. That thing just stared for maybe 3 seconds. And then it stepped off the road, into the desert, vanishing into the scrub. I rolled past slowly, gripping the wheel tight, trying to process what I'd just seen. Probably some tweaker, I told myself. Someone high, half dead, lost in the desert. I even thought about calling the sheriff's office when I hit service again, but I didn't get that far. 5 minutes later, my headlights flickered. Once, then twice. The dashboard lights dimmed, then came back. I glanced at the gas gauge. It was fine. The battery lights stayed off, but the radio, which had been off the whole drive, suddenly hissed to life. Faint static, then what sounded like a voice under it. It was low, warped, like someone mumbling through a broken speaker. I turned the dial. The voice followed, bleeding across every frequency. I caught one clear phrase before it vanished. "Pull over." I slammed the radio off. My hands were sweating. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. That's when I saw movement in my side mirror. Something running, fast, in the dark beside me. I only saw glimpses between the flashes of my taillights, but it looked like the same thing I'd seen on the road. Bent low, long arms pumping, keeping up with my truck at nearly 50 miles per hour. I floored it, 60, 70. The sound of gravel spitting from my tires echoed off the cliffs. I didn't dare look back until I hit 80, but when I did, there was nothing. Just the empty road and my own headlights stretching backward into the night. I drove like that for another half hour, high beams on, heart hammering. No more flickering lights, no more voices. Eventually, I saw a small green road sign for a rest area, 2 miles. I pulled in the moment I saw it, parked under one of the old sodium lamps, and just sat there, trying to calm down. The lot was empty except for one other vehicle, an old dust-covered RV parked off to the side. No movement inside, no sound, just the hum of the light above me. I checked my phone, still no service. I decided to wait a few minutes, maybe catch my breath before getting back on the road. I turned off the engine, but left the headlights on, staring at the ground ahead of me. That's when I noticed the footprints. In the dust, right in front of my truck, a line of bare footprints. Leading up from the edge of the lot, they stopped just 2 feet in front of my bumper. My throat went dry. I hadn't seen anyone. I hadn't heard anyone. Then something tapped. Thunk. Against my hood. I froze. It sounded like fingers. Another tap, closer this time. I flicked the high beams on, and for half a second, I saw a face leaning just over the front of my truck, hairless, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Then it was gone. I threw the truck in reverse, tires squealing, and tore out of there so fast I almost hit the sign at the exit. I didn't stop again until I hit the lights of the interstate, and even then, I didn't pull over. I drove all the way back to Albuquerque without stopping, without looking in the mirrors more than once. The next morning, when I checked the truck at the hotel, I found 3 long scratches across the hood, deep, parallel marks in the paint. I called my boss and told him I was done with field work. I've been working remote ever since. But here's the thing that still gets me. 2 months later, one of my old coworkers, Mike, took that same route for a job. He texted me a photo from a rest stop near Grants. In the background, just past the fence line, there was something standing in the desert, thin, pale, still. I texted back, asking if he'd noticed it. He said, "What thing?" I zoomed in, and I swear it was the same shape I saw that night, standing there, just watching from the dark. I don't drive that stretch anymore, and if you ever find yourself alone on Highway 117, keep your eyes on the road, and whatever you do, don't stop for anyone. I've always been drawn to quiet places, the kind that make you feel like the rest of the world has disappeared. Maybe that's why I took the job. Back in 2020, I worked as a contractor for a communications company that maintained old radio and cell towers across the western states. Most of them sat out in the middle of nowhere. Dusty fields, mountain ridges, deep forests, the kind of places where your GPS signal fades before you even park the truck. One of my last assignments for that company was in northern Arizona, near a place called Marble Canyon. A storm had knocked out the signal from an old emergency broadcast tower sitting about 25 miles off the highway. My supervisor said it would be a quick fix, replace a transmitter, check wiring, back on the road before nightfall. It never goes that easy. The drive out there was brutal. A narrow dirt road snaked between low red cliffs, the sun hanging heavy and orange behind a haze of dust. I had no cell service by the time I hit the halfway mark. The GPS lagged, freezing every few minutes before flashing no signal. I kept telling myself it was fine. I'd done these routes 100 times, but when I reached the tower site, I realized how truly alone I was. The structure stood about 100 feet tall, its metal skeleton creaking in the dry wind. A small maintenance shack sat beside it, built decades ago from sun-bleached plywood and corrugated steel. The padlock was rusted, but open, hanging loose like someone had been there recently. I grabbed my toolkit, radio, and flashlight, then climbed the short hill toward it. Inside the shack, it was cooler, but not by much. The air smelled like dust and old wires. A single workbench lined one wall, and an outdated generator sat humming softly in the corner. That was odd. The tower was supposed to be dead. There shouldn't have been any power. I checked the gauges. All flat. No juice coming from the grid. So where was that low humming coming from? I stepped back outside, ears straining. It wasn't the generator. It was higher. A faint crackle drifting from the tower's old PA speaker. "1. Alive. Don't go." Static warped the words, but I swear that's what I heard. A voice, distorted, like a transmission half lost in time. I froze for a solid 10 seconds, waiting for it to repeat, but all I heard was wind scraping across metal. I tried to shake it off, probably leftover frequency feedback. The desert air could play weird tricks with old electronics. I climbed up halfway to the transmitter panel and started checking connections. Everything looked right, except one thing. A thick cable leading down the tower, buried into the sand. That wasn't on the schematic. I followed it maybe 20 feet until it vanished under a pile of sun-cracked boards near the shack. When I moved the boards aside, I found a square metal hatch, small, maybe 3 feet across, with a handle welded shut. The cable ran through a gap in the edge and disappeared below. It wasn't company standard at all. Older, military grade, maybe 1960s tech. My gut started tightening. None of this should have been here. I tried the radio to call in, but it just hissed. No connection. That's when the humming sound shifted, deeper now, like it was resonating through the ground itself. My boots vibrated slightly on the dirt. I backed away from the hatch, eyes locked on it as a soft tapping started from underneath. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, deliberate, like knuckles on metal. That was enough for me. I packed my gear, logged a site-compromised note in my clipboard, and turned to leave. But when I reached my truck, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. The door was wide open. I hadn't left it like that. Inside, my radio headset lay on the seat, and it was on. Through the static came that same faint voice, this time clearer. "Don't leave me here." I slammed the door, started the engine, and floored it. My rearview mirror caught the tower shrinking in the distance, its light at the top flickering weakly in the growing dark. I drove 20 minutes before I realized my GPS had come back online, but it wasn't showing my route anymore. Just a single pin, still blinking over the tower. The label read, "Receiver 07, active." I didn't stop until I hit the highway. When I filed my report, the company brushed it off. Probably a feedback loop, they said. The generator might have kicked on by itself. But 2 weeks later, I got a message from a co-worker named Vince. He'd been sent out to finish the job I abandoned. His text said, "We couldn't find the tower." I called him immediately. No answer. Checked the coordinates. Gone. The pin was deleted from our system. I've since left that company. But sometimes, when I drive through the desert at night, I pick up shortwave transmissions on my old truck radio. Faint voices, half buried in static. And more than once, I've heard the same line repeat through the noise. "Don't leave me here."